This is episode 1, and I have a very dear friend and distinguished guest today, in Dr. Emir Turam. I want to talk a little bit, Emir, because this is the first episode. I'd like to share a little bit with the audience about what we're trying to do here before I get into your introduction. But the Basketball Embassy is an organization that looks to build community and grow and develop the sport across the entire globe. And we use basketball as a tool and as a platform to achieve different things, in humanity. Yeah. So we're trying to grow up young people, players, teams, etc. So guys, I got you guys in the background on the sound. I don't know if they can hear that or if that's just me.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's just.
You want to unmute?
Oh, shoot. Sorry. I got to unmute you. Unmute me. Sorry about that. Okay. So that's on us. Chris, kind of, when you launch into it, we're going to just do that one part again. Just, okay. Energy, we're here. We're excited. This is our first episode. Joining me today. Little more. Not quite.
Second cup of coffee. Got it.
There you go.
I got it.
That's it. And
right.
I'm going to mute myself and get out. As soon as I cue you, I will mute myself.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if that sound would be, but I could hear it. So
you could hear us talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we won't talk.
No, it's all good. I just
No, I'm glad you said something.
Okay.
We're working out all of our kinks, Emir. Again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Boss, I owe you some beers after this.
Chris sounds like he's being interrogated at the police station,
Yeah.
Very serious.
Right? Tell him to listen up a little.
All right,
Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
All right, Chris, just take it away when you're ready.
All right. Hello, my name is Chris Dial. I'm here with the Basketball Embassy, and we are launching our United We Hoop podcast. I'm the founding president of the Basketball Embassy. It's an organization that uses basketball as a tool to do a lot of different things across the world. So, guys, I can still hear you guys.
You can still hear us.
Yeah, I don't know if that matters, but
yeah, he says. Sorry. Okay. I'm hearing a lot of noise too.
So let him know
we're gonna kill this mic in here.
Yeah, John, I can hear you, so you can tell me.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think it's just Amir and I. Amir, can you still hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can also hear them talking in the background too.
Okay.
When they do.
But right now, I think it's just you and me.
Oh, okay. Good.
You hear anything else? I don't.
No.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try this again. It's just Mary making sure that my intro is okay, I think. So, all right. All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Dial, and I'm the founding president of the Basketball Embassy, and we are launching our United We Hoop podcast. This is episode 1, and I have a very dear friend and distinguished guest in Dr. Emir Turam coming to us live here from Istanbul, Turkey, one of my favorite cities on the planet. And Amir, I want to introduce you here in a second, but I want to let these viewers and listeners know that the Basketball Embassy is essentially an organization that's used basketball as a tool to do a number of different things. Aside from building players and teams and programs all over the world, we're also trying to build good people and use the game to dissolve barriers and unite people in the best way that we can. And so this podcast, over the course of the next few episodes, we're hoping to reveal some incredible stories and feature people like you, Amir, that have been integral ambassadors to the game of basketball for so many years. So I want to introduce you, and I'm going to keep your bio short because if I went into everything that you've done, we could make that an episode in itself. But Dr. Turam here, like I said, very good, very dear friend of mine, has been a mentor, but has been a staple not only in Turkish basketball, but also in European basketball. As the Turkish Basketball Federation has risen to a top 10 standing and consistent standing in the world, Amir, his colleagues, the federation itself, it was the forward-thinking efforts of you guys that basically propelled the basketball in Turkey to where it is now. And Amir has continued to serve the game sitting on numerous committees with the Olympics and with FIBA Europe and FIBA World, and he's, he frequents world championships and get-togethers and gatherings. He speaks. He's also a professor, a lecturer in Istanbul. You see the books in the background. This is one of the most knowledgeable men that I've had the privilege of being around. He's put a preface on education and emphasis on expanding your mind and understanding how the world interacts. So Emir, welcome, and thanks so much for doing this with us and helping us kick off the United We Hoop podcast.
It's my pleasure, Chris. Thank you for the opportunity. Happy to be here.
Great. So Emir, I just want to get right into it, man. People have asked me since we started, like, what is the Basketball Embassy and what the heck are you guys doing? I try to tell some of those folks, depending on how much time we have, about my first couple of trips over to Turkey. So you and I had never met, in person when we started talking over the phone. Back in the day, it was usually Skype or exchanging emails. And I was learning a little bit about this Turkish Basketball Federation grassroots program, So can you maybe take us back, 10, 11, 12 years? You were heavily involved in the state of things in this country, 80 plus million people that found this incredible passion for basketball. And you guys were doing some really cutting edge things in terms of grassroots development. You had this all-inclusive mentality. Can you talk a little bit about how that program, kind of started? And I think that'll help contextually pave the way on how you and I got connected.
Yes, thank you once again. I'm very happy to be here, Chris. And you're taking us back quite a long time, actually, I think we have to go back 13 years at least, before 2010. For a general understanding, I might need to remind all the listeners, viewers from the US, that the youth structure of basketball is a little different overseas. Where in America you have the schools as the primary platforms where players are developed, all the levels up the education ladder, junior high, high school, and then college and everything. And then you prepare your players. And if they're good enough, they get drafted to the NBA, or if they're not, they play in some other leagues or go to Europe. Overseas, it's not like that. Overseas, the schools are not the primary actors in players' development. The clubs are. The clubs can be compared to the NBA franchises in our caliber, let's say. They have their professional senior teams, but then all the way down the age ladder, they have their development platforms of younger players. They can be boys and girls and in their different categories. And so if you ask a question, where are basketball players developed overseas in countries like France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Turkey, anywhere, Russia? The answer is in the relative platforms of the basketball clubs. Having said that, the national federation, the Turkish Basketball Federation, is nothing different than USA Basketball. It's the official entity coordinating, governing basketball in the country. And it's affiliated to FIBA, the International Basketball Federation. And FIBA has 213 member countries all around the world. And Turkey is one of them, just like USA is another one, and all the other countries. So the Turkish Basketball Federation, as the governing body of basketball in Turkey, and I myself, as a director of international affairs of the federation, I started there like 1995, right after I stopped playing. And I retired last year, so it's 20 plus years. And we had a general strategic program to develop basketball. But when we say develop, it doesn't just mean increase returns and revenues. That's the professional side. But on the other side, it means making basketball a better known, better followed sports.
Right.
Now in Turkey, football is number one, like in many countries in Europe,
Right.
and basketball is number two after football. And there's a pretty wide gap in between. So basketball probably will not aim at overtaking football in a close future. But still, the goal is to increase all the factors, number of licensed players, number of coaches, number of referees, results on the court, revenues off the court, sponsorship deals,
Right.
and all of that. So we had a strategic program, and one of the anchors of this development was getting international events to Turkey. International events are multi-country tournaments, the official ones, and an important one is the European Championship, which is a continental championship, and above that is the World Championship. Another one would be the Olympics, but that would not be a sole basketball goal because it's a multi-sport event.
Right.
So we started, and the first goal was to get the European Championship to Turkey, and we succeeded in doing that in 2001. The bidding went on 3 years prior to the event, around 98, and at that time, we were already working with Chris Dial in our grassroots program, like he mentioned. He was an assistant coach in those days. And when we got the event, of course, it was the goal for us in almost every aspect. And we wanted to create a brand which represented our senior basketball team who would take part in the Eurobasket a few years from then, because we wanted to inspire young people. So the brand we came up with was the 12 Giant Men. This is comparable to the Dream Team, maybe, when the NBA players first got the opportunity to play in the Olympics in Barcelona in 1992. The US team came up with the notion of the Dream Team. It really was a dream team, you know. Dream players came together. They won all their games with nothing less than 30, 40 points, etc.
Right. Amir,
So,
I can translate for our Turkish. The 12 Giant Men is 12 Dev Adam basketball school, you know, in case
right.
we show
So we
that.
developed that concept, and it had its own song, theme song, and it had its own dance for the fans to dance together in the stands. And we had a lot of social programs related to it. And then we had the 12 Giant Men basketball academies, which was for young children, and they could go and practice basketball there. And that was all over Turkey, nationwide. And then we had summer programs where we brought in distinguished American coaches, and Chris Dial was one of them at the time. And we organized summer camps, kind of like American summer camps. So we bring kids to facilities for a week, 6 to 8 days, and they stay there, eat there, live together, play together, practice basketball together, learn together. And we did that every summer. So then the Eurobasket was played, and the Turkish team did real good. We got the first ever silver medal in 2001. And Yugoslavia, in those days, Yugoslavia hadn't been split yet. So Yugoslavia won the gold medal, and Turkey was second. And then we went on, we did the same in the girls. For the women, we took 2005 Eurobasket women for Turkey, where our women's team did a great job. By the way, basketball academies were open to both genders, and it was like a balanced program. But we still needed a flagship national team to be successful on the court, to inspire these youngsters to pick up basketball, or if they're already playing, to continue and work harder and commit better, etc. So then I'm just going through the history, Chris, like you asked me to do. In 2005, we did it for the women. That was the first ever European finals the Turkish women team participated in, because until then they never got through the qualifying rounds and they couldn't make it to the finals. And in 2005, they did for the first time, and that was actually due to the home team contingent. They didn't play any qualifiers because the home team is automatically qualified. But then they played real good, and they took the first ever 8th place in Turkish women's basketball history. So then we started looking at wider goals, and the World Championship was in focus. So then we went for the 2010 World Championship, which we got, and that was probably the biggest sport event, not only the basketball, but in any sport, the biggest international sport event Turkey had staged until that day.
Well,
So
Namir,
then,
I want to tell on that part before you keep going. I want to tell the viewer also that that 2010 World Championship was not just huge for Turkey, but this was a time when, you know, the U.S., for example, we hadn't competed as well as we wanted to. You know, going back to 04, 06, you know, World Championships, Olympics. And so we sent a really talented group with a new coach, with Mike Krzyzewski, over to Istanbul to compete. And the team that Turkey had at the time was pretty incredible as well. You had several players that were in the NBA. You had a couple of others that were playing high-level NCAA Division I. And I remember, you know, going back and forth with you about it, but I was there working for the TBF, you know, so, and the basketball embassy hadn't quite been born yet, but I was doing that work, you know, and I remember going like to the championship game with my Turkey basketball shirt on, but underneath my Turkey shirt, I had my USA, you know, shirt, because it was the perfect final for somebody like me, because it was a program that I was working in and supporting. But I also got to see my home, you know, country play. And, you know, people that maybe were outside of that scope wouldn't understand, you know, what a profound impact that was. But for you guys to, one, secure that championship and have it in Istanbul, and two, to script it out, you know, beating Serbia and then playing the United States in the final game, and it being a competitive game. And that was sort of the introduction to the world of, hey, there's also this guy named Kevin Durant that's pretty good. And, you know, he had a great tournament. But that was such an incredible culmination of all the efforts that you've been describing, you know.
yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm just trying to underline that this wasn't just like a one-year effort. It was more than a decade,
Right.
and it was a wider development plan. So 2010 was a men's world championship, and again, the team did real well, and we got the silver after you guys, after the US. That was tremendous publicity for basketball in the country. And families, children, everybody, clubs, they were all so motivated. And the same, just likewise, we said, okay, how about the women? So then we went for the women, and 2014, we got the Women's World Championship to Turkey.
Right.
And the Turkish women took the first ever in history, fourth in the world place in that tournament. And at the same time, our grassroots activities were continuously going on. And when the level was raised up to a global level, we were thinking of supporting this level with grassroots activities, which would help the youth benefit from the energy created, okay? So then we came up with the Children of the World concept for 2010. That's where the Turkish Basketball Federation invited one young girl player and one young boy player from all around the world. And because they were young, they were like 13, 12, 13, a few of them turned up 14, which wasn't our goal actually. Because they were young and couldn't travel alone, we also said, okay, our affiliated basketball federation, please select a youth coach and send these two kids with that coach, so the coach can bring them and he can also participate in our program. So it was open to all 213 members of FIBA, and eventually 106 made it to Istanbul. So this was a 10-day program, and Chris was coach there. A 10-day program where this incredible international group worked together, lived together, ate together, played basketball together. But there was also a cultural part. They did city tours. We went to museums to understand different cultures and to appreciate them and to develop empathy and all of that using basketball for this. But the goal wasn't to create champions. The goal was just to bring these young players together, and competition was not in the first concentration. We just wanted to play ball and have fun, because out of these 106 countries, there were very different levels of basketball represented. I mean, you couldn't put them all in one pool and let them play together because the capacities and talent and everything was very different. So we said, okay, this is a game. Let's have fun and let's enjoy it, and that's it. And then in the evenings, we went to watch World Championship games. So these kids coming from all around the world, they had a great experience for themselves, but they also took part in the World Championship. And it was also good for FIBA because 24 countries officially participate in the World Championship. So it's just elite, those who make through the qualifying rounds. So we had the 24 countries on the court, but then we had official representatives, basketball representatives from 106 countries. So all of these kids with their national flags, they took part in the opening ceremony. And they officially represented their countries, 106 countries in the opening ceremony of the World Championship, which never had happened until then and probably will never happen again because you can only facilitate a limited number of countries. Anyway, this 10-day camp, I mean, it was an incredible experience. 75 languages were in the air. You could hear them. I'm not talking about dialects.
Right.
Like the English speak English, the British and the Scottish also speaking English, but it's not the same English. It's a different dialect. This was 75 different officially recognized languages.
And hearing that on the court was something that you just don't hear. You know, you got a kid passing the ball to another kid yelling something in Mandarin, and that kid's catching it, and he's catching it, receiving it, saying something in Spanish, bounce pass into a Russian speaker that hit an Arabic cutter down the lane for a basket. I mean, it just was incredible. And, Amir, for me, and you and I have talked about this before, unfortunately, we had an opportunity in 2014, with Pass It On to try, something similar and to do something of that level. But I think it was that 2010 camp that really solidified for me, like, hey, this is kind of what I'm supposed to be doing. When there is an organization born that I didn't know was going to be born at that point, but I was like, this is what it is. This is what we have to do. And that was just, when you look back at life and you think about the few moments that really define you and your career or whatever, that was definitely one of them. I mean, we had kids from Israel and Palestine in the same groups. We had Albanians and Serbians together. We had 17 or 18 African countries represented that some of them had been at war and they were participating together, all in the name of this kids game that we just really loved. And it was an incredible deal.
Exactly. And that's the embassy part. Now we're coming to the embassy part of the basketball embassy, because basketball is very important. And we had a great group of coaches with Chris there as well. But it actually, then you exhaust your basketball capacity as a coach if you can't communicate with these kids. Now, Chris will tell you how he communicated with them. Obviously, with basketball, using the international language of basketball. But I mean, it's not easy. It's very difficult. You have to keep them under discipline. They have to understand. And it's not only on the court. It's a 24-hour camp. You have other sessions. You have meals, all kinds of city activities. And keeping them together was just unbelievable. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience. And really, that's where the diplomacy comes in, of the basketball embassy.
Those friendships that were developed, it's crazy for me to see, because some of those alumni, they still keep up with each other, maybe certain chat rooms or Facebook rooms or whatever. And, they're grown up now, they're not 13 and 14 anymore. That was 10 years ago. So they've embarked on their playing careers. Some of them have finished. Some of them didn't have playing careers. Some of them went into medicine. Some of them went into other areas, but that single experience there really transformed, the way that they looked at the world. And I think that's, at the essence of what you're talking about, is that this game is intended for kids. It can do an awful lot for a lot of people. I just remember, even working with kids, like we had some kids from India, for example, and I'm over there using the ball. My hands are, I'm really animated. I'm fired up. I'm sweating through my shirt every day. We're in Istanbul in the summer. I mean, it was, 37 degrees centigrade. It was, 90 something degrees Fahrenheit every day, humid. And I remember just telling these kids from India who I loved, like they were some of the better players too. And I would say something, I'd be like, okay. And they would do this. And I was like, why are they always saying no? Like they still go do it. So I'd say, hey, go get some water. And they'd not move their head. And then they'd go get water. And it took me about 3 or 4 days, dumb guy from Texas. Pretty soon I realized that culturally in India, that's how they show acceptance. Where in, America, we're sitting here, we nod like, okay, yes. Their yes was like this. And so, it was one of those light bulb moments where it's like, okay, hey, remember, man, there's a whole lot of countries out there and they do things differently. But we found a way to coexist and communicate. And it was such an incredible experience. And then that did sort of lay the framework for, a second attempt when you, like what you alluded to in 2014, Amir, we saw some of the efficacy of that. We saw you guys continue to be forward thinking and press. And now you're platforming a women's world championship in a Muslim country, at the time where there was still some resistance to whether women's sports played, in the same space as men. And you in particular, you guys were always pushing for equity. There you are always pushing for, hey, we got some really incredible, talented young women players, young women coaches. Let's platform them, and they showed out great. But we ended up attempting the second run at a Children of the World like event, but we did it with Can't Pass It On.
Yeah, I mean, the approach of the Turkish Basketball Federation, like you said, was equal. So whatever we do for the men, we try to do for the women as well. So when 2014 came, we had the Women's World Championship and we wanted to do a similar thing. So that was Can't Pass It On. And the number of countries was a little less due to budgetary reasons, because the budget of the women's game is a little less than the men's game, the number of sponsors and their capacities and everything. But we still had 76 countries with the same model. And again, we had one girl and one boy and one young coach who came with them and worked with them. Now, in the meantime, our youth programs were growing. I'm just talking about the top elite international part, but nationally, every summer, we were doing our programs, and our programs were growing, and Chris was really contributing. And actually, Chris was growing our programs and growing himself with our programs as well, because it's not just coaching, like I said. I mean, in a different culture, when you're running around the plateaus of Anatolia to these small towns, it's not easy to relate with these people in Eastern Turkey. And he was doing a great job. And so when 2014 came, we asked him to be the head coach. So you have a lot of coaches, and then you have your head coach, and it's an international group of coaches, so it's not easy to govern, but he did a great job in that as well. And in the meantime, we also got some support from the US State Department development funds when we were taking the game to these rural areas in Turkey, because you might know or you might not know, in the NCAA center facility in Indianapolis, there's this museum kind of place, and one of the top milestones is, in the historical chronology, it says 1904 we introduced the game in Turkey. So actually the game was introduced by Americans more than 100 years ago in Turkey. That was like around 20 years after Dr. Naismith invented the game in Kansas. But in those days, it wasn't like today. We were just playing with baskets with the bottom wasn't cut out. So after every basket, they had to take the ball out, climb up the ladder.
Luckily, that would have made you really important, Amir, back in the day, because you could have just reached up there and people not seeing you, man. This is a 6'10", 6'11" dude right here that used to do some damage. Also, I didn't mention, but we can't get through this episode without mentioning that you were the first Turkish player to come over and play at the University of Evansville, and helped be a part of the charge that took them all the way to a Sweet 16 appearance.
Actually, we were top 20 that year in Sports Illustrated, first time in Evansville history.
Yeah.
And then we went to the NCAAs. In those days, it was 48 teams, not 64. But we matched up against the Marquette team of Doc Rivers and them, and that was one of the great teams that year. And we got beat out in the first round by 5 points.
Okay.
So actually, we didn't make the top 16. We could have maybe against another opponent.
Was better. My misinterpretation was better, Amir. We should have let that run. Now people would have called me out.
We respect them. We respect that Marquette team a lot. They had a great team, and
absolutely.
Doc Rivers himself, he became a great coach afterwards and everything. Anyway,
but also my favorite statistics about that story is the following year at Evansville. Amir goes over there, and then that first year, and then the next year, there's like 35 Turkish students. Evansville became like the place to go because Emir Turam went there and played, and so all of a sudden, I think it opened up. Ever since then, Evansville has had a strong Turkish student athlete or student representation.
If I had my vision of today, I would have gone to the president of the university and say, "Hey, I'm bringing in all these students. Let's make a deal or something." Actually, it would jeopardize my eligibility probably in those days, because amateur rules were stricter in those days.
True.
Anyway, what I'm trying to underline is it's not just basketball. It's not just going out there, hitting your shot, scoring points, beating your defender, but it's something beyond that. Our grassroots programs was based on something beyond that, being a good person. And then this is one of the reasons why Chris was so valuable for us. You guys are a great basketball country, and obviously you have many coaches who are very good, But what we found in Chris was not only a capable coach who could teach the game, but beyond that, a great person who could stress other personal characteristics that a good player, any person, needs to possess. And that was really very valuable for us. Now, in one of these camps in Eastern Turkey, which we did together with the U.S. State Department support, the ambassador himself came to see. He was saying, "Okay, we're supporting these guys. What are they doing?" So he brought his team and his press attaché and all of them, and they came to Diyarbakir, I think it was, and there were all these kids, and he was really impressed, and he was walking around the camp. There were close to 180 kids probably, both boys and girls, and we had many courts, and it was like a 24-hour camp. They stayed together, ate together again, the same model. And when we were walking around, I was kind of taking him around, and then he saw Chris with his back to us, and Chris didn't see her. He was kneeling close to a little girl who was actually crying. And nobody knows what the issue was. She was probably homesick or something. It was probably the first day of camp, and she was uneasy, insecure, and she missed home or something. Because what we did, we would bring in kids from the neighboring cities as well. And then Chris had his arm around the shoulder of this little kid, and he was explaining something. Now, I'm almost 100% sure that that little kid probably didn't speak English. I don't know. I cannot swear to that, but it's probably correct. And Chris was speaking, and I didn't hear as we were approaching him. I didn't hear what he was saying, but somehow he was reaching that kid because the kid was nodding. And then as we were coming, suddenly, Ambassador Richardoni, he was a great guy, and he was a great representative of your country in Turkey. And then he stopped me and he said, who's this guy? Well, I said, Chris Dial, he's our coach. Because prior to that, they had asked us to accept their guidance in providing coaches for our program. And they said, look, we have good relations with the NBA as a State Department. We can talk to them and we can bring coaches over. And we hadn't accepted that. We had said, look, we have a great team of coaches, Chris and his team, and we want to continue with them. Thank you very much. And they actually insisted a little bit, and they tried to say, look, hey, look, we are supporting this financially, and at least you can at least let us decide on the coaches. And we refused that, actually. And they worked with that, and they said, okay. And then this instant was so important in that respect, because he suddenly stopped and he said, where did you find this guy? I said, this guy is from Texas. He's been there. I mean, we've been working with him. And he said, look, Emir, this is actually what we are looking for. This is an excellent image of America. Actually, this is the reason why we are here. Basketball is just, it's a tool. And it's a great social activity for America, but it's not the real goal. The real goal is this. And I mean, I was a little bit hesitant, he said, but I want to thank you. I mean, you made the best selection. And Chris, I don't know if you know about this or don't, but that's part of it. So it's not just basketball. And then after 2014, 2015, we came to the point where Chris Dial and his organization, by then he had a lot of assistant coaches working with him and everything, and the basketball embassy was really developing. They kind of outgrew Turkey. And they stepped up into the European level. And they, at that time, they started doing similar work in different countries in Europe. And from a very colorful background, I mean, from Eastern and Western Europe. From different historical, cultural, social, and political backgrounds, but the basketball embassy somehow managed to go there and be appreciated and be, invited to do similar development programs for them. And this is important because this is the difficult part. I mean, coaching is not that difficult because basketball development programs for young kids, you can find them everywhere. You have a lot of books, you have a lot of internet volume you can easily click and find, and you can download them and you can go out and do them. But the more important part is being able to provide value in different cultural places. Like Kosovo, Chris, he was so successful that he lived for a basketball season, a whole winter there. He actually moved there. I mean, Kosovo is a difficult country. I don't know if anybody listening has been there or not, but Chris was really embraced there, and he was asked to coach their national team, youth national team, alongside developing players and everything. And I mean, you're talking about a country who was at war a few years ago.
Right. Well, and I can't imagine starting here in any other country now. You know, in retrospect, I can't imagine starting anywhere but Turkey because of the diversity within a country. And I mean, people, if you're listening and you have not been to a place like Istanbul, you haven't been anywhere, because, you know, that city in particular is such a great representation of the country, because you have, I mean, like Emir alluded to earlier, southeastern Turkey is nothing like western coast, southern coast, where you're in paradise in one place, you're in the desert in another. You have, the Black Sea culture to the north, and then you've got Istanbul being the only city on our planet that's on two different continents. You really have a crossroads of culture. And so being able to navigate through a game like basketball in Turkey, I felt like, I mean, part of this was me being, a little young and naive from Texas, but I felt like I could go anywhere. If I could have that success, build some relationships. I had the support of the federation, President Demirel at the time early, and then President Demirel again with FIBA Europe. But going into Kosovo, I felt very confident after having been to Romania and some of these other places that we could go in and we could really establish a firm program. But like you said, it's so important. And, people that may be listening that are charged with developing a program, that are trying to figure out what a macro cycle looks like. If you don't have that value, like you said, you're replaceable. Somebody else can come in and teach people how to shoot a correct jump shot. But if you can't develop relationships and try to inspire and motivate people to improve themselves, utilizing everything that the game gives you, you're not unique, in that space. And I think during that time, that's when you had also urged me to formalize this and validate this with an organization. And I was actually telling some of our one of our board members, Mary, is here with us, and she was asking me, like, so tell me again how you said Emir basically had pretty much everything to do with you starting the basketball embassy. And Emir, I don't know if you remember, you're throwing some stories back at me, but it was after Pass It On in 2014, and we had this big dinner. And one thing that you're really good at is big dinners, and the Turks, man, they eat like the Texans, man. We both love barbecue, and we can put some food down, and maybe some other things too, some good beer or wine. But I don't remember to this day exactly who was there, but I remember it was a bunch of important basketball people and me. And I think we had some of the heads of the federations of our friends, Horia Pan from Romania, maybe Georgi Glushkov from Bulgaria was there, all these, former basketball guys that you were friends with and that you had also supported. Turgay may have been there as well, but there was a lot of important basketball diplomats. And after, a couple of bottles of wine had disappeared over the course of the table, we had gotten into that good Turkish barbecue, which I miss so much, especially right now. You did what you do very well. You threw me into a spot where you're like, hey, man, I got countries calling me, asking me for a reference, and I got to tell them, hey, I got this guy from Texas that's really good, and he'll come and he'll get you straightened out. He'll help you. And you told me, you said, come on, Chris, when are you going to have like a company or an organization behind your work? And I remember you said it in a joking manner. Everybody's laughing and the guys were giving me a hard time. But the reality was, it was that summer that I got home. I remember running everything through you, but it was the concept of this basketball embassy. We're working to build ambassadors to the game through the work that we do. And we had such an incredible network of support, and so, I want to thank you again, Emir, for all of that. And there would be no basketball embassy if you hadn't pushed me appropriately to make sure that we developed an organization that was going to do just that. It was going to be a little bit different.
Well, thank you. I mean, I might have helped you here and there, but it's you yourself who deserves the credit, because, I mean, those two examples you are giving, Romania and Bulgaria, I mean, by the way, those two guys are the presidents of the federation. They are the top basketball governing people in those countries, but they still are, by the way.
Right.
Those are ex-Eastern European countries. So on a political term, they were part of the Soviet Union, okay? And it doesn't matter what I say or what anybody else say. There's a big cultural difference. And don't think that there are many American coaches who are invited there, because, I mean, it's not like going to Italy or Germany or Sweden or England where you have the same language. This is ex-Eastern Europe. And you've done camps in both of them, and you've returned many times to both of them. I mean, it's not just being invited one time and, okay, thank you very much, and bye. Being invited back the next year and over again the year after that, that's what shows the credit you deserve, Chris. That's very important. And there are more. Belarusia, for example. I mean, you did the camp in Belarusia. Besides Russia itself, Belarusia is right now it's like the heartland of the ex-Soviet culture, if anything is left, or as much as anything is left of it. So, I mean, I don't think any other American coach has ever been to Belarusia to do some summer camps invited or in coordination with the official basketball federation, which means more or less the government in Belarusia. So, I mean, you're doing that. It's just, I mean, it's great. I mean, the basketball embassy, I have a lot of respect for you guys. And it's not only me. I mean, 2 years ago, FIBA, the governing body of world basketball and its European continental extension, FIBA Europe, they reached out to you because they had a program, 5-country program, and they wanted to do a development basketball youth development program in 5 countries, and which they were funding, and they asked you to be there, you know, and you were like the technical director. You wasn't running the program, but you were running everything on the court related to basketball with it, and all these 5 countries. It was a great success, and again, FIBA, it's the first place they look for to bring in youth development coaches is not America.
No, it's not.
And certainly not Texas. I mean,
no.
even if they get across the ocean, they would probably be around somewhere in the East Coast, and, you know,
Yeah,
but you
sure.
brought them all the way to Texas, Chris. And
Yeah, we've had some
I think, yeah, it's
that
great.
have come out of that. But your reference, you know, helped a lot with that. Even some of those FIBA people, I remember being invited to one of those FIBA Europe youth gatherings, you know, where they bring, you know, 37 representatives or delegates into the space and they talk about youth development. And that's one thing I've thought in the past that maybe a criticism of USA basketball is that maybe we're not doing enough of that. You know, we have a numbers problem, but we also have a numbers benefit. You know, 330 million people, we're going to find talent, you know, in this country. We have a lot of resources, but I think there's probably some measures that FIBA Europe has done, and in particular to the country that like Turkey has done, that are much more efficient. But when I was there, I flew into Sofia, Bulgaria, and I landed not knowing exactly what I was going to get into. And it was right at the beginning of this program that you're describing, where Turkey was actually sort of a big brother, you know, a big sister to these 4 Balkan, you know, countries that were coming up: Macedonia, Kosovo, you know, Romania, and Bulgaria. And what we were tasked to do is basically take this U14 generation, put them together, deliver really sound curriculum so that they could go back to their countries and sort of rinse, wash, and repeat. They could build players, you know, at the same level that Turkey's been able to do. You know, Serbia, Spain, you know, Greece, France, they've all figured out how. Now Finland, Latvia, you know, they've figured out how to really produce players. So we wanted to give them that. But the cool thing is I think FIBA, you know, I've always credited them for being very forward thinking, and being very cognizant, you know, and being aware. And they understood that having this crazy crew of Americans, you know, especially hailing from Texas, of all places, would actually, even though it wasn't written into their curriculum, but it got us that chance to do what we wanted to do, which was to break down and dissolve some of the barriers, you know, between those former Yugoslavian states, where, you know, the coaches would get out there and they'd look at each other and size each other up, and they don't want to share any information, and they're not about, you know, a social network. They're not trying to build that community. And I'm over there just, you know, mixing up groups, and the coaches are huffing and puffing on the first day, like, why is, you know, we're Macedonian. Why in the heck are we in a group with Kosovo kids? That's not why we're here. I said, well, you know what? Then that's just me. I'm going to do it this way. But obviously we, you know, over the course of that 10-day program, and it happened over the course of a couple of years, they got plenty of time together, and they developed an identity, you know, per country of what style of basketball that they wanted to play. But they also developed these friendships across these borders. And it's not like Romania and Bulgaria have been at war or anything necessarily. It's not like they have some crazy strife, but those people don't necessarily collaborate, you know. And now I've got Bulgarian and Romanian coaches that invite each other from Bucharest to Sofia, or vice versa. They bring their kids. These little camps and everything have stemmed off of this program. And that's not in the metric for assessing the success of the program. We assessed success, and FIBA Europe said, yeah, this was great. Went really well. Thank you, Turkey, for your help. But what we didn't continue to assess was all these relationships that were built, and some that are still going, you know, not to mention the success that those, what became U14, U15, those U16 teams had. You know, they had some incredible success in the European championships based on prior, you know, performances. So it showed a raising of the level of all those kids, but it also showed this raising of awareness, like you addressed earlier, where we developed some empathy, and we figured out how to be friends, you know, across borders, across languages, across, I mean, that little bitty country project still represented 3 or 4 languages, represented 4 or 5 religions, and some different political and socioeconomic systems. You know, they're not all the same. And so that's been, you know, one of the most enjoyable things about being a part of the Basketball Embassy and what it's trying to do, and some of the ambassadors that it's empowering and enabling, is just to see how that light bulb comes on. You know, they're like, oh yeah, well, I get this. Well, I'm still going to go out here and try to dominate on the court, but I'm making some friends, you know, and I'm going to be able to look at the world a little differently, you know, maybe with less cynicism. I'll be able to, you know, kind of navigate a little bit better. So it's been really cool. It's been a heck of a journey. It's hard to sit here and think, talking to you, that it has been 12, 13 years since I just showed up with a backpack and a passport, and you were like, hey, you're going to 4 different cities in 4 weeks, and I'll see you, you know, and we've come a long way and done a lot of different things. You know, it's been a lot of fun.
It's been great.
Well, Emir, before I let you go, man, I wanted to see, you know, you personally, you mentioned, you know, kind of formally retiring from the TBF, the Turkish Basketball Federation. You're still a consultant. I know that there's still plenty of people reaching out to you for advice and guidance. I know you still have your hands in, you know, a lot of the efforts that FIBA Europe, you know, is making. You still sit on committees. You're still leaned on for, you know, advices and support. There's a ton of knowledge and experience in you, and you're still giving it back in those channels. But generally, what else is, you know, in that, and then also in your personal life, what's keeping you busy these days? Are you still lecturing, and are you still doing?
Yes,
You know?
I'm lecturing at Bilgi University. That's in Istanbul. They have a great sports management school there, and I'm very happy to be doing that. Actually, I taught political science and public diplomacy for many years, but then after I retired from the federation, they asked me to come and teach sports management. So I thought, why not? And I'm very happy I accepted, and I'm doing it happily, and I think it's very good. The last 3-4 months, like in the US, we've been online
Right.
because universities have been closed because of the virus. But
Your wife is a beautiful wife to them. She's probably happy that you're staying busy and not bothering her. I'm
yes,
guessing.
probably. And then
Been all of our English teachers forever. I go over to Istanbul the first year I meet her, and she's correcting my English. You know, I'm from Texas, so she had to get me straight. So.
yeah, and then I also now when I retired, I created my company. So I'm doing mainly I'm doing consultancy in social responsibility through sports. It's not for clubs or federations only, but also for municipalities, companies who want to create um, a meaning using sports. And it's growing in Turkey. It's not very big yet, but it has a bright future, and I think it's coming along. The European Union has a lot of programs. The Erasmus Plus sport program is is very definite, and I've been working in that direction a little bit. Um, so I can say I'm quite busy. I mean, I'm not in competitive basketball because I didn't want to go and work with a club,
Right.
because the success definitions are daily, and the daily pressures usually outweigh larger goals or longer term goals, and I don't want to do that in the first place. So I'm working with these projects for disadvantaged children. I'm working with social inclusion through sports.
Right.
You know, we have a lot of Syrian refugees in Turkey, close to 4 million, which is a lot, and Turkish kids and cultural differences, and going all the way down to the empowerment of young people through sports, basketball and other sports. And I mean, right before this meeting, I had a meeting with an international project with the Turkish Sports Foundation, and the project partners are from Poland and from Lithuania and from the Czech Republic, and that's a great initiative. I'm very proud of it, and it's just beginning, but I think it'll be great.
Awesome.
And we're going on. We're looking forward to continue doing some work with the basketball embassy. It's a great
Sure.
pleasure as always. And now you have such a well-proven legacy behind you, Chris. And I think you have a great future waiting for you, and you can do really a lot of good work.
I appreciate it, Emir. Thanks. I'm looking forward to getting back over to Istanbul. Kind of been my second home, you know, in a lot of ways. I've probably flown in and out of Istanbul 75 times, you know, in the last
Okay, if you
decade.
come 5 more times, you'll be given a Turkish passport.
That's what I need. I need it. I tell you what, I've told, you know, our friends here, you've met so many of our coaches, friends, family, staff. But it's still funny to me, you know, we'll be walking around down there by the, you know, just below the Grand Bazaar, the Spice Bazaar, that Eminu area, you know, and then there's the bridge with all the restaurants and the fish restaurants and these cafes. And I'll walk through with you, and there'll be 2 or 3 guys every single time. Emir Abi, you know, and we're getting pulled into a restaurant and they're putting a spread on and we're getting food and all this stuff because you're still such a recognizable face and name down there. I can tell you it's you because I go back by myself and nobody pulls me in their restaurant and lays a bunch of food out there for me. So
Thank you.
it's cool, man. It's just such a cool city, and the Turkish culture and people are just incredible. I'm just I feel so fortunate that I've made so many friends and family there, and I just look forward to continuing working there, not only, you know, with whatever the federation desires in the future, but it's been fun to peel off and work with some of those clubs and some of those other organizations, like our friends at Sporting Work and our friends with the Gulair Legacy camps, and, you know, just good people trying to do good things by the sport. So but yeah, I appreciate you being on. I know that I'll be talking to you soon, and we're gonna see how this podcast goes. United We Hoop, and some of the guests I think you're gonna know a lot of. We've got some of your pretty distinguished friends across the pond that are gonna be willing to hop on here with us and share. So I just want to say thanks again, Emir, for being here.
I thank you, Chris. Keep it up. Keep the great job going.
All right, we will. All right, boss. Take care. In Turkish, görüşürüz, and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you. Görüşürüz.
I was going to ask you. Yeah. Oh, you do? Oh, we unplugged it. I was going to see before Emir goes.
Before we let you go, I might get one more thing.
Yeah. Could we get him to do a tag like this is Emir Turam? You're listening to the.
Yeah.
United We Hoop podcast.
Yeah, Emir, would you mind doing so just a quick little, like, hey, this is Emir Turam and you're listening to the United We Hoop podcast.
No, I'd love to. Just tell me, you do it and I copy you. You do it first and then I do the same.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I'll do one for me and then just do the, yeah. So if something like, hey, this is Chris Dial and you're listening to the United We Hoop podcast.
Hey, this is Emir Turam and you're listening to the United We Hoop podcast.
Perfect. Hey, Emir, do it one more time in Turkish.
Bu benim adım Emir Turam ve şu anda United We Hoop görüşmesini izliyorsunuz.
Çok iyi, çok iyi.
The first,
right.
Is Mary there? The first word you learned in Turkish was karpuz, right? Karpuz, watermelon.
Watermelon, man. I learned how to say watermelon and thank you. And
Okay, I'm plugged back in. That was great, you guys. I really appreciate it. Emir, what a joy. You guys could just go on forever. Good stories.
no, we really could.
Yeah. We're very
Emir.
grateful to you for doing this. Thank you so much.
So we were trying to hold our manners, you know. And
Yeah.
Okay,
not get
now we
out of
record
hand.
the real one.
Yeah.
Okay, that was terrific. And Amir, thanks for doing that little tag for us. We'll keep you posted. I'm probably going to email you to ask for any kind of social media handles you have.
Okay. Okay, feel free.
Yeah, so we'll be able to push that out across the world when
Thank
we're
you.
ready to launch. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, boss.
Bye.
We'll let you
Bye,
go.
Chris.
I'll see you. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Amir.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.